Pleasure to be here with Nilanjana Bhowmick. Welcome, ma'am, to Kolkata Literature Festival. Let's start by talking about your session, which is very curiously called the Identity Quotient. So, tell me a little bit about what is your take on the way identities are evolving in today's world. From the outside, it seems like we're getting more polarized, we're getting more divided, the marginalized narratives are getting further marginalized. What is your take and assessment?
Um, I think as a country, we have always been very polarized. Our identities are very, deeply, embedded, in our culture. But I think what has happened now, if you're talking about current times, I think it used to be, they used to be hidden. But I think, today, we live in a world which is so polarized, and polarization is doesn't feel like wrong anymore. So people are very, things which one used to be ashamed of at a point of time, they're not ashamed of that anymore. So you will, all the kind of unrest, you see in India that is happening today, over religious and caste. These used to be, things that we would be ashamed of. Even if we thought about it, we would like never talk about them or take pride, that kind of a division or polarization. So I think, there is a certain shamelessness attached to it right now. Um and that's bad for a society, because we're all human beings in a country of billions of people. Of course, there's going to be division and polarization, but when you do not feel sorry for thinking the wrong thing about someone, maybe who's your neighbor, or someone who's a co-worker, or someone you're traveling with, or someone who's serving you food, when you don't feel bad about thinking um in a casteist, or a in an Islamophobic way about them, you don't feel bad about that or ashamed about that. That's a bad thing for a society, because that's where we start coming, that's the undoing of every great society.
What do you make about the way narratives about women and women's lives and what it means to be a woman in this country are now being disseminated? And how do you sort of contrast that and compare that to what it was maybe 10, 15 years ago?
Things have remained the same, over the last 40 years. So, in my book, I compared the experiences of women who came before us, my mother's generation, and then, there's my generation. And nothing seems to have changed. There we have come a long way, but unfortunately, there is a longer way to go. And, when we talk about identities, I was just talking to someone here that, women, it's almost like the caste hierarchy. When we talk about identities, women are burdened with sort of holding up identities, of making sure that the cultural identities gets passed, like through generations. But they're also juggling with their own different identities, as mothers, daughters, wife, whatever, women juggle a lot of identities. And so I think things have not changed, unfortunately. You would think that today, as more women are getting an education and they're going out to work, that things would have changed, that they have more agency, they have more voice. But actually, it's only 1% of women, maybe 2% at the max, who are actually free in the right sense of the term. But otherwise, we are just compromising and adjusting, and kind of like paying a price for whatever we have been allowed to do so far.
My final question is about the role of journalism. Now, journalism seems to perpetuate the idea of echo chambers in the current era, right? So it's in some ways doubling down on identities, both for good, both for the bad. Where do you see the role of journalism vis-a-vis identity, and in terms of making sure that stories do not become reductionist, stories get the respect that they deserve, different communities get the respect that they deserve? Where is the role of journalism in all of this?
Look, I think journalism itself is the problem. I have worked in newsrooms across India, and I have not yet come across a newsroom which is not sexist, misogynist, which doesn't try and push out women journalists of a certain age, especially at the senior leadership level. So I feel that when we are talking about women's empowerment, social justice, all of this, when we are talking about these things, we are actually, we really need to take a look at ourselves first. We really need to, this is, when it comes to the media really needs to, like, look at themselves, make the changes. Sensitization is so important in media. I have worked in newsrooms, where people, crack sexist jokes, they crack, phobic jokes, knowing that, like, there's a woman sitting in the, across them, or, someone, like, of a, different caste or a different religion, and they see nothing wrong in that. So, and then, when they go out and lecture other people as to, how society should change, that's kind of like very vain, like, that's like sort of delusional. So I think, media needs to, really, take an inward look, look at, how it's treating the issues that they are writing about. They're asking for social change, but, is that happening in their newsrooms? Not really. So I think, that's where it all needs to start.
You've got to practice what you preach, after all, right?
Sorry.
You've got to practice what you preach,
Of
after all.
course, absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Have a great time at KLF.